All right, so what I'm going to do is I've compiled together the top six from the IFBB Nationals in March, April. So season A, 2024. This is the top six. I've taken the photos from MP News Online. So these are obviously not. It's never going to be as good as it is in person to make these calls, but it's about as close as we're going to get at this stage. So I've taken those photos. I've also, for any of the girls watching, they probably realize this, and anyone else might realize this. I've flipped everyone's front pose to be facing the same direction because this is often the easiest way to compare. So that doesn't change anything other than the photo's been mirrored around, and it's easier to compare when everyone's facing the same direction. Just for the sake of this video, anyway. So one thing I do want to make really clear is that in bikini, not just at an amateur level, but at the highest level, at the Olympia, it's literally about nothing other than balance. There's obviously specific criteria that I've compiled over on the left here. We can go through that in a second. But the biggest thing is the balance. And this is something that you really need to have watched a lot of bikini. You need to be very, very aware of structure. This is things that you need to have a very keen eye for. It's very different when you're staring at a photo versus when someone's on stage in person. It's very different. And until you've done that over and over and over, like the judges have, it's very hard for you, to kind of discriminate anyone else's opinion. And remember, it's never a judge's a judging call or like a placement on a show day is never one person's opinion. It's not a collective opinion. It's a panel of 5 to 7 depending on the show. Each judge gives each competitor a score, and then the lowest score is the winning, and so forth. So like you might have 4 judges on stage who think that someone's a winner, and in front of the stage think someone's a winner, and 3 think they're second, but they still win because the overall total is going to be lower than the girl who comes second. Of course, that's just how judging works. So, if you ask a judge for feedback and they actually thought you were deserving of first place, then that's going to skew your perception of how you went. You need to really understand bikini in order to decide what needs to be done to progress. And that's probably one of the biggest problems even in the conversations I have with my own athletes, but just a lot of people ask questions, especially through this anonymous link. And, I'm happy to help, but this is my way of trying to show that sort of stuff. So obviously in order of placement, we've got Reese, Ruby, hopefully I get the names right. Sorry girls. I believe this is Tamika, Bree, Caitlin, and then Jasmine. Okay. Now, just looking at the front pose only, if you take away any detail, take away any sort of like you take everything away and just make it a black silhouette, you can see why Reese won this pose, right? Structurally, she's got the most balanced hourglass shape. All right. If you look just between her and Ruby, the width across the top matches the width through the hips. The way she's standing, the balance of the lower body, the glutes, it matches the shoulders. Everything's lined up. Everything's in proportion to itself. She's not necessarily the most developed on stage in the front pose, but she has the most balance, top to bottom. Like your eyes don't go anywhere. Now, if we look along the lineup, Ruby has some crazy development. She's got awesome, fullness and pop. However, what lets her down here is just the balance of top to bottom. She's a little bit lower body dominant. Her midsection is a little bit too developed for bikini. There's quite a bit of development going on through the midsection here. And that's why Reese overpowers her in this pose. Even though she's not as muscular, it's definitely about the balance of things and the way that your eye is captured. And this is so much more obvious in person. Then we look along to Tamika. Tamika's really, really strong in this pose. I would say she's probably not as structurally dominant as Reese, but she's on par with balance. Top to bottom balance, fullness, everything's great. Midsection's tight and flat, not too much development. She's not striated, she's nice and full, but she's just lacking a little bit of that sort of structural dominance that makes Reese more preferred in this pose. So it's very close between the top three, but you can see that. Brie, I believe, same thing. I don't think she's posing as well as she could have. I remember speaking to her on show, she was very uncomfortable in midsection. Something, I don't know what happened, but she was struggling to pose, didn't feel comfortable, and you can kind of see that. Normally when she hits her front pose, it's a lot more balanced, a lot more dominant, but that's just what led her down there. She has great size and shape and density, and she's got a similar issue to Ruby where the midsection is very developed, which can take away when you do stand next to girls like Reese who have more that sort of softer midsection, but it's still tight. So that's what lets her down there. It's just more of the posing. Top three girls are posing pretty good. I think Ruby could open up her upper body just to help. But that's how I see that. And then we've got Caitlin and Jasmine. I would say Jasmine's got a really good structure, similar to Reese with the wide clavicles, very athletic appearance, but still lower body dominant in comparison to the upper body. She needs a little bit more lats to fill that out. I think she's a taller girl as well, so it makes it harder. But just a little bit lacking in width of the upper body. And then the reason why Caitlin beat her at this point is she's just more balanced, right? She's top to bottom balanced. I think Jasmine's a little bit more dense and full in the quads. She's probably got a little bit more muscle in the lower body, and that's what captures your eye. So your eyes go to wherever the development is. That's the problem with bikini. You might have a really good body part, but it's not the point. You don't want to have anything, taking your attention away from the overall package. And that's where my eyes go on Jasmine, is my eyes go straight to the quads. So it might be a posing adjustment. It might be, who knows what needs to change here. You'd have to look at the whole plan and the whole process in detail to unpack what is going on. But the other thing too is you can see like she's a little bit sort of straight through the upper body, in comparison to these girls where they've got taper, right? There's a taper from the midsection. It's more straight. And while she's got wide clavicles, there's no taper that brings you up into this sort of structure, right? And in a taller girl, this is common. Similar with Brie, right? Brie's got a little bit more width through her lats, thickness through her lats, and when she opens up and poses correctly, you can see that. But yeah, with Jasmine, that's what's letting her down here, and then you can see the taper difference in Caitlin here. Caitlin's got a great structure, balance top to bottom is there clearly. Okay, so that's how I see it. I agree with this call out. I agree with the placings. I think the judges did a fantastic job. Obviously I'm not saying that just because we won the pro card. I had clients who didn't place as well as we would have liked. And so, it's I'm not saying that because I'm biased. I actually just truly believe that the judging was and has been really consistent. You're not always on the receiving end of a good call. And you're not always going to be happy with the placing, because you're going to be heavily biased by, your athletes or yourself or your friends or whatever it is. But you've got to take a step back and look at it from the judge's perspective and really truly understand the criteria and how it's judged. It's so tough with bikini when you see it like this, but when you actually start breaking it down, you can see it very clearly, right? I'll move to the back pose. So again, if we look along here, it's not about who has the most dominant glutes, because you could easily adjust the placings based on glutes only. But when we look along there, it's obviously about the shape and the structure and the balance. I would say Ruby and Reese are very close here, but Ruby's opened up a lot more through the shoulders. And so what this does to me is it shows an upper body, lower body imbalance where she looks more conditioned in the upper body. I don't know if it's because she's standing a lot straighter, But there's balance of shape and size of the muscle, and then there's balance of conditioning of the muscle, which is just as important in bikini. And that's why I put Reese first here, because when I look at Reese's back pose, it's just so balanced. Like there's nothing missing. She's just as wide through the top as she is through the bottom. The quads and the glutes are in balance. There's nothing overly conditioned where it's like, whoa, like there's hamstring etches, like there's a crazy separation between glutes and hamstrings. Like the shoulders aren't overly capped or striated or anything like that. It's just a nice amount of fullness. This is very bikini to me, and this is why she won, right? Ruby, amazing shape, like crazy for her age, crazy density, crazy development. The progress she's made in a very short time is like insane. So, you know, you could argue based on her development that she is deserving of a win. But then when you think about the overall criteria, you know, you're looking at the shoulders, you're looking at the glutes, and this isn't as balanced. Like there's some really obvious great parts about her physique, but it's not as balanced as Reese's back pose, right? It's just not as balanced in entirety. This could be a posing thing, you know, it could be a conditioning thing in the upper body. Like, you know, it just depends. It's hard to tell why that's the case, but it's just what it looks like. Moving further along, it becomes more obvious. Like outside the top two, Tamika's got a great back pose, and it's same sort of breakdown as what I said for her front. She's got good balance, she's got good shape, but just structurally not as dominant as the top two, right? If she had better structure with this amount of muscle, then she would be winning, because I see her like it's flawless presentation, posing. You know, the muscle, she's got great muscle fullness. She's presented herself really well for what she has built. She presents herself really, really well, and I you know, credit to Nay and her team for like the posing and everything. Like it's you know, you can't really do any better with the only way to improve now is to grow and improve your physique, which is what you know, that's the idea of competing, is to present your best version. You know, for her to be placing higher, she just needs more size to create the illusion of more taper, right? Because she does have a little bit of a thicker rib cage, a little bit of a thicker waist. I wouldn't say that there's anything wrong with the peaking or anything. Like it's just a perfect bikini. Just needs more shape and muscle to you know, compete with girls who have a more genetically favorable structure, right? That's just bikini. So she needs more muscle to fit the bikini criteria better. And there's obviously nothing wrong with third place at national titles. And the reason why that happened is because she is presenting very well and she's nailed the criteria for her body at this point. Move along to Bree. Bree's same issue here. I think she's struggling with her posing. She's got one of the strongest back poses. She won, I think, multiple state shows in the juniors. And you can see why. It's very balanced. Similar issue to Tamika, like not as structurally gifted, but what they've done with her posing, her balance, you know, everything that she's done to present bikini criteria. That's why she did so well that season. It was presented well, condition was good, great. You know, I don't look anywhere like, if anything, it's probably a little bit more like roundness to the glutes in comparison to Tamika, but you know, for what she is there, it's like great presentation and overall nailed the look for her. Just needs more muscle again. In these poses, right? To compete with the balance of these girls, top two, she needs more size so that it's more bikini, right? More shape to create that illusion. And then moving down, we've got sorry, is this Caitlin? Yeah. Caitlin's lacking a bit of shoulders, a bit of density all over. Like she hides, it's hidden in the front pose with the structure, but in the back pose, that's where it's revealed, because you can see a bit of lacking muscle, bit of density, and you know, it's hard to say whether this is a posing issue or whether it's just a matter of getting. You can see there's an imbalance between the lower bottom. The upper and the lower in terms of condition, but also in terms of development, right? She needs a little bit more muscle through the top to match the bottom, but then probably needs a little bit more muscle density in order to have the same conditioning in comparison to the top two. Like you can see the difference between first and fifth here is just density, right? It's just muscle density, shape, and fullness. I guess the controversial, I don't know if this is the controversial part between the two girls here in the rear pose, but I do believe what places her high here is her front pose, right? I believe the back pose on Jasmine is stronger than Caitlin, because you can see the balance. I would prefer her hair to be longer to cover this, because sometimes obviously if you're arching really heavily, you can see muscle density in the lower back, and you don't want to see that, and you don't want to see the conditioning that's here. You want to cover that and just have the shoulders and glutes visible. So that's something I would change. I wouldn't say that's the reason, but I would say like that would help soften it up a bit, because it does look very, it to me it looks very, it doesn't look bikini when you can see so much, especially when you can see this density and this condition here. And if that was in person, it would be more obvious as well. But like great back pose. If you were to cover that lower back, that's an awesome back pose, amazing back pose. Really balanced, nice conditioning. I would say you need to be a touch fuller. If Jasmine was fuller here, she'd be higher placing in the back pose, right? Obviously the front pose lets her down, but the back pose itself would place higher just if she was a little bit fuller. So this is the thing, guys. Like, it's subjective. This is my opinion as well. This is not the like, I don't have the collective opinion of all 5 to 7 judges on the panel, but this is how I see bikini. It's very clear to me. I've got very clear criteria in my mind. I've watched a lot of bikini, like I study it, and I've coached hundreds of athletes to stage for bikini, and I've been through the process of being confused, and I've been through the process of knowing, and that just takes time. And now I know, and I'm very confident about what I know, and this is it. Like, and this is why I love bikini, because it's so subjective, but so strategic. And there's ways in which girls that place lower can come back and really place higher in a very short period of time. It doesn't take much. You don't need a lot of muscle for to go from fourth to first. Could be a kilo of muscle tissue, and just better peak, better conditioning, better fullness, this sort of thing. So, do I agree with the placings? Absolutely. I think that was a great judging. To have that depth of talent as well in the juniors was crazy. But well done to all the girls, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all come back in the opens, and there's some crazy caliber athletes here. I'm sure each and every one of these girls could turn pro with a few more years. Who I'm looking forward to seeing, definitely all of these girls. Like, all these girls could be a real big threat to, the whole junior lineup. Like the junior, you got to remember, guys, the juniors is the future of the division. There's girls outside the top 6. I'll be doing some reviews, some Rate My Physiques on some of the girls who are outside the top 6 in this junior lineup, and they're also incredible. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I love bikini in general, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone who's coming up compete, and looking forward to seeing how well they do. If you guys want me to do more of these, let me know, because I'll do more.